Good evening and welcome to Hong Kong, where we're bringing you the final of the Cathay Pacific Credit Suisse Privilege World Open between David Palmer and Amr Shabana. My name's Russell Flynn. I'll be joined later by Malcolm Wilstrop and Peter Nicol. But for now, here's Adrian Battersby with the analysis of this lineup.
Welcome to Hong Kong. My name's Adrian Battersby. I'm in London covering the Masters tennis event at the moment. Russell Flynn and Omar are out in Hong Kong covering this event live for us. And this is the final between Amr Shabana of Egypt and David Palmer of Australia. I think most people would have probably predicted it to be Nicol and Wilstrop who would be getting through to the final, but both players seem to have big problems in their semi-finals, and 2-3-0 victories for Shabana and Palmer over Nicol and Wilstrop respectively now sees this match between two players who have, Shabana's really hit major form this season, big tournament wins under his belt, and David Palmer, started off fairly poorly, but his last few tournaments he can't be complaining about at all. Let's have a look at the next slide. And the head-to-head's been between these two players since '99. They've met 9 times, and these are the past 4 meetings between them. And of course, they met 2 years ago in the second round. Shabana winning 3-2 there of the World Open. The 2004 British Open final, we saw that on PSA Live. The match is available as a replay, and Palmer winning that one 3-1. Now, there were accusations made at the time that Palmer sort of manhandled his opponent too many times on court and was virtually holding Shabana as he was playing shots himself. Now, at the end of the day, Shabana is a small player and Palmer is a big lad, and I think some of the times, certainly a few of the issues that came up there, to me looked as if Palmer was literally just trying not to knock Shabana over too heavily, and he was trying to sort of hold Shabana to say, well, look, I don't want to knock you over as I come in to play this shot. Well, the next match was, of course, the Qatar World Open quarter-final, and that was another big 3-2 result, with Palmer winning 12-10 in the 5th. What a finish there. And, of course, their final meeting was Shabana over Palmer at St. Louis, and a 3-1 win for Shabana. And as we said, Shabana is a man on form this season, and he's just blown away 2 of England's best players, Lee Beachell and Peter Nicol, in 33 and 34 minutes respectively. Just quite amazing. Well, if we look at David Palmer's season first on the next slide, you can see that to start with, match we saw on PSA Live, losing to Ollie Tourmanen. He'd never lost to Ollie Tourmanen beforehand. 10 victories, 0 defeats. Make that 10-1 now, because Ollie came away with a 3-1 win there in the first round. In St. Louis, he went out to Shabana in St. Louis at the quarter-final stage. At the British Open, we saw this on PSA Live, losing out to Ong Beng Hee in that match that lasted 2 days. And I know that David was very, very unhappy with his own performance after that match. He was a 2 times defending champion coming into that tournament. We saw him in the US Open play some fantastic squash. He beat Anthony Ricketts in that semi-final 3-2, went on to lose 3-2 to Lee Beachell. Always seems to be a bit of controversy in their matches, and David was upset over a decision late in the match, which he felt threw the decision against him a little bit. And then, of course, the last 2 tournaments, he's reached the 2 finals. He's lost in both of them, but at least he's getting there now, and he certainly wasn't doing that earlier. And of course, it was last week in the Qatar Classic final, losing out to James Willstrop 3-0. Well, I think it's fair to say that really David was struggling due to previous efforts made. He'd had 3-2 victories earlier, and I think this match, well, of course he did get revenge over James Willstrop. He beat him 3-0 in the semi-final here, although all 3 games were very, very tight. But I think it's fair to say that it's a different David Palmer now. Quite strange, both players coming into this final with 2-3-0s under their belt. If we now look at Amr Shabana's season, well, Hungarian Open, he won that one, beating Gregor Gaultier in the final. He won the St. Louis Open final, beating Anthony Ricketts in the final, as we saw earlier, David Palmer on the way. He won in Heliopolis, beating Karim Darwish in the final with a retirement. And had a break with Ramadan, and came back last week in Qatar, went out in the second round to Gregor Gaultier 3-0. But one of the comments made was that, of course, people who go out early in Qatar then do have a bit of time to prepare for Hong Kong, and Shabana certainly had that time. And well, the length of his matches here in Hong Kong are being just quite amazing. Well, Shabana in past World Opens, he is a past winner. In 2003, beat Thierry Linku 3-2 in the final, but interestingly has lost out to Palmer twice in 2002 and 2004, once in round 2 and once at the quarter-final stage. So there is history between Shabana and Palmer in World Opens. If we have a look now at Palmer in past World Opens, as you can see, he lost to Shabana in round 2 in 2003, so they've actually met each other in the past 3 years, and this is the 4th year in a row they will have met in the World Open. Quite an amazing little statistic there. Well, here's the rankings page, and as you can see, David Palmer was world ranked for 3 months at the end of 2001 there, and that was really due to great victories in the British Open and the Hong Kong Cathay Pacific 2001 tournaments, beating Thierry Linku in the final in Hong Kong. I remember being there, David being really happy knowing that he was going to be world number 1 after that victory. Well, he's always been in the top 4 or 5, had a little dip at the beginning of 2004 due to injury, and Shabana was just ahead of him for a short while. Shabana's always been in that sort of 5 to 10 bracket, and well, he's, as you saw last month, he actually just went ahead of Palmer. Although having said that, now he's actually just dropped behind Palmer, and Palmer's moved up a little bit and Shabana's dropped down. So these players are neck and neck in terms of their world rankings, and if we look at from 2002 to today, you can just see that how close together they've been. Just a slight drop there for Shabana at the start of 2005. Of course, his World Open title would have points would have just dropped off for that period, but he's made up for it, and he's always been in that top 10 position for the past 2 years, as has Palmer. So there's the stats on this World Open final for 2005. And now let's just sit back and enjoy the match. I'm going to hand you over to Russell Flynn and Omar from the PSALive.tv team, who are over in Hong Kong for us. And let's just sit back. It's their 4th meeting in a row in the World Open. Let's see what happens.
Thanks for that, Adrian. I'm now going to hand over to Malcolm Willstrop and Peter Nicol.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to PSA Live viewers, and it's to the Cathay Pacific Credit Suisse Privileged World Open Final. And happily I have with me the illustrious Peter Nicol tonight, and perhaps as the game's in its early stages I can ask him first about his match last night, when I think people were surprised he lost as quickly as he did to Amr Shabana, and perhaps the court as well, because it's a Perspex court and a bit different, and how he thinks that will affect the prospects of the 2 players.
Well, good evening, Malcolm. I struggled on the court last night. I found it very difficult to see the ball from the very start, and playing someone like Amr as well, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen, because he likes to hold, and his racket head speed's so good that I was going for cross-court drives off when he just hits basic straight length and things like that, and you can't compete not with someone like Amr when that's happening.
And as for the two players tonight, how do you think the court favours one or the other? I mean, they both played well on it yesterday, so neither of them will be thinking they're at any disadvantage.
No, they'll both very confident. They both think they can win. It's just a case of who gets the better start, I think. I really think it's very important. The first game is going to be crucial.
Well, I think David's done remarkably well to get to this final after reaching the final in Qatar, because I think everybody thinks winning back-to-backs or competing back-to-back is extremely difficult, and Amir has come here very fresh. He's had a break, a bit of tendonitis in his wrist, which is over. Arguably, before the rest, he was as good a player as there was in the world, and I thought last night against you, although you weren't seeing the ball too well, he looked immensely sharp. And I have to say, if anybody's asking for my opinion, I think with the court in his favour, I would make him favourite tonight.
Well, I think, yeah, with the length of matches he's had and how well he's playing, I believe that he probably is the favourite for this evening. But the things with David is you can never, ever count him out, because he will give everything he has tonight. He will leave blood on the court if he has to tonight to try and win this World Open title.
Well, he's renowned for his obduracy and stubbornness, and I mean, last night he needed that, because the 3 games with James Wilson were all very tight, and probably that stubbornness and determination was what pulled him through. It was a tight enough game.
And like we said, the start very important, and Amr's got off to, was it 5-1 lead in the very first game.
Like he did against you, he started quickly, and I thought against you he got even quicker as he struck the ball well, found the court to his liking. He seemed to gather pace, gather momentum, and let's be honest, with the racket, he's as formidable a player as there is.
He's immensely talented with the racket. I think now what's happened is he's actually got a mental strength and physical strength with that he didn't have before. Always felt that when I was playing him, that if I just hung in long enough, I'd managed to get some mistakes off him, or basically just work him out of position and win. Whereas now he's playing a very sensible game, with then taking his shots in and doing everything he can with the racket.
Yeah, he's definitely altered as a player. He had what I would call a soft belly going back 18 months, but somehow he's hardened up, and then allied to this immense racket ability, he doesn't give way anymore, and he's a terrific player to watch, and he's great actually. I love watching him play. His work on the forehand side is quite unbelievable. The quickness of his racket, the short backswing, and yet it's very pure as well, and he's a model on the forehand side.
Well, yesterday in particular, I didn't see very much of the ball on the front forehand, so I was a spectator. I think it's the racket head speed. He plays it quite late, but gets the racket head through so quickly that it can it's gone before you've even moved. His backswing is not a big backswing when he sort of clips it away, but it's very pure as well. And he is actually very patient as well. He's not like all shots. He'll wait his turn, but when he plays them, it's very decisive. Anyway, he's away to the start we thought he would be, Peter. 5-3 or 6-3? 6-3. And it's happening quite quickly, which is very much in his favour. He likes the game quick and decisive. David will be looking to stroke it round more and try and get some rhythm, rather like we thought you would yesterday, but it didn't quite happen. Yeah, it's a case of whether or not David can get into his rhythm and get Amr playing some longer rallies. He needs to be able to do that, otherwise he's going to be struggling.
Hear the sound of the ball. It's being struck beautifully by both players.
I think that's what I felt yesterday with Amr as well. I struggled to see the ball, and I felt like he was seeing it like a balloon. You know, you could hear him hitting the ball, and it was crisp, it was clean, under pressure as well.
Yeah, that was a difference. I mean, when cricketers are in great form, they talk about seeing it like a football, and just as you were obviously having difficulty, he seemed to be seeing it larger than life, didn't he? He really did seem to be on top of it all.
Yeah, it was all very easy for him.
I must say, when I watched the match yesterday, I thought the court was quite different, and early on it was stopping dead in the back, and shots were absolutely telling. But as the games progressed, they sort of, I don't know, it lengthened out a little bit, but it's definitely a court on which you can play plenty of attack.
Yeah, I thought it played hard the first game and got better. You know, it was unfortunate that I was on first again. I think I might, if I was
probably.
I'm taking anything.
Well, that's why we've got you commentating, Peter, just in case you're looking for alternative employment, like I am. You know, there's an opportunity for you.
That's a bit harsh, Malcolm. I'm near retirement, but I'm not retiring quite yet.
No, I'm sure you're not. Plenty of spot in you. You see how eagerly Amr's trying to get across the mid-court line and intercept. He's quick forward and looking to cut things off all the time. David probably less so. And that was a chance really for Amr, and he tinned it. So David's clawed his way back to 4-5. And he'll keep doing that because he is tough, as Peter said.
It's a good example of a rally that David needs to put together. He was under pressure, but because the rally went on for quite a bit of time, Amr was sort of played a lazy shot there into the tin. Whereas if it's in the first 3 or 4 shots of the rally, he doesn't tend to do that.
Yeah. David does seem to get into the odd collision now and again. I'm not clear why, because he moves well enough, but he's a big, strong boy, so I'm sure he can absorb it.
I don't think there's any way of getting. He's going to get in the way. He's what, 6'3",
and that's wasteful.
Mistake.
That's wasteful because there's no excuse for tinning it off the return of serve. I seem to remember you doing that in one of the games yesterday. I think last rally of the game, in fact. So I knew you wouldn't be happy with it.
Can't remember that one.
No. See, it's good how the memory helps you on its way.
It's called denial.
It's in these sort of phases, Peter, is it not, that around sort of 6-5, that those sort of middle phases that players sometimes break away a little bit? I seem to think it's a crucial phase, and you often get players just breaking away to 9 and so on. I've often felt in the middle areas it's like a period where you need to really concentrate.
Yeah, it's a bit like when we were playing to 15 before, about 9-all was the crucial time.
Right.
Now it's sort of about 5-all, 6-all.
Yeah.
But different players play different ways. You know, I think Shabana would ideally like to get ahead and go through, whereas someone like David or maybe Thierry Linku don't actually mind coming a little bit from behind. Say 6'8", 6'9", they regularly come back from that sort of position.
Yeah,
so
they do, yeah.
it's a sort of position here. I think Amr will have to get ahead. He'll have to get a couple of points up.
Yeah, he's essentially a front-running type of player, I think. But having said that, with his improved consistency, and he is definitely tougher, it's not such a disadvantage as it was. I felt there wasn't a period in his career if he got down that his head went down a bit. I don't believe that's the case anymore. I don't think it'd be impossible for him to win from behind. And obviously Palmer's an expert at it.
There's the classic example of what we talked about. His forehand, very little back lift, and David didn't even see it, didn't even move.
Didn't move. It was deceptive and beautifully struck.
Yes, Dad.
He actually does. Shabana hits the ball with a very pure racket for a. He doesn't really get into a lot of cutting and so on. His racket, I always feel, gets through the ball very purely and flat for an Egyptian and for a stroke maker. I think he's a very pure striker of the ball. David seems to be moving fine anyway, and he's had the harder run up with Doha and here as well, but he seems to be moving all right. He's a strong fellow, and he puts. He won't like that one much.
8-5.
I think the difference with David this week, I've noticed, is he's very much more focused. So there, he could have easily, he's upset with that decision, but he bit his lip, he turned around and he's got on with it. And I think that's made a big difference this week, and last week in Qatar, his performances. Much more concentrated.
Couldn't agree more with you. I mean, sometimes he gets into a real sweat about referees and things, and I don't believe that does him any good at all. This week, his discipline first class. He's got his backup team, a heavy backup team with him, and obviously I think they're probably advising him to keep as calm as he can. But this is where we said he's broken away, as Amir has broken away very sharply.
And the thing is, when he does get 2-3 points up, he will then go for it a little bit more. And if he's seeing it this clearly, he'll hit the winners, which is what he did. He forced mistakes from David, and he's 10-5 up.
It's hard to see David winning this game from 6-10 because you can't think that Amir is not going to hit a ball away in the next 3 or 4 rallies. He loves these sort of situations. This game's worked out perfectly for him. He looks very confident, I think. He gathered immense confidence against you last night as the game went on. And he looks businesslike. He looks onto the ball and lovely deft drop. And that's another stroke.
I almost feel that.
Yeah, sorry, Peter. Yeah.
I almost feel he's not even thinking about anything. That's how fluid he is at the moment. It just looks like he's just playing.
Yeah.
And naturally just playing, just doing it.
Yeah, I think he puts the ball in good areas anyway, doesn't he? I mean, by instinct, he has an instinct for the game that some people have, like reading the game, or in his case, he rarely puts the ball in the wrong area. He knows where to put the ball. It's like an instinct. I think a lot of Egyptians have that instinct. A lot of them are very gifted, like Darwish and Abbas. They're all very gifted players. Some of them lack a bit of persistence, something that Amir, as we've said, seems to have developed. He got married, of course, and I think he attributes his current form, some of it, to his marriage, and his wife's here with him, so maybe that's a help. And I know her shopping allowance is going up by the bounds every round he wins. Her shopping allowance has gone up to a considerable sum, I understand. So you're lucky you haven't got anybody looking for cuts in your earnings, Peter.
Just as well, the last couple of years, anyway.
Why, she'd have gone short, you think?
My earnings have gone down considerably.
She would be wearing rather ordinary stuff, you reckon?
But on a serious note, Amr getting married, and in the last year I've noticed a huge difference in his attitude, and he seems to have grown up a lot on court. I can't talk from off the court in his life, but and he seems to be very, very happily married as well. Yeah. And with that contentment, he just seems to have blossomed as a player. Everything seems to be fitting into place now.
Well, I mean, being more serious, the shopping comments are obviously a bit trivial, but he actually did say that the marriage had helped him, and as you say, he looks a happy, contented guy, and if you are happy, I think that's a requisite of playing good squash. I think to play squash well, or probably any professional sport, if you're not happy, you forget it. So
I think you've got to be one or the other. Really happy and content,
right,
or really miserable and angry.
Right, yeah, a bit of anger.
And let that drive you through.
Yeah, maybe. I think I'd go for the contentment bit myself. But anyway.
Well, that's ideally, yeah.
You know better than I about how to win big squash matches. So I was never very angry ever when I was a player. Probably I didn't win.
You were a player, Malcolm. I've never.
Well, yeah, I think that's a bit unkind to think that I coached and you think I've never played. I was quite outstanding. I just don't talk about it a lot.
To what level did you play, Malcolm?
Good county, Yorkshire and so on, so good county standard. And maybe because I was fairly inadequate, that gave me an understanding of what was needed. I don't know.
Good point.
Well, if you look at all the top coaches in football, a game I don't particularly like, but some of them don't seem to have even played football, and a lot of the people that played it extremely well, or any sport extremely well, don't always make out into the coaches, do they?
Well, going back to when I'm playing and I'm playing my best squash, it tends to be when I'm injured or ill, because you have to think about it a bit more. Yeah. So if you're maybe not as gifted, or you have to work things out.
That's right.
And so what you said, I know you said it in jest, but I think it's
no, I was actually making a serious point. I do believe that if you are thoughtful about sport and you've played to a certain level, obviously a decent enough level, without being that good, you may, to even get where you've got, have to think about it that much more, and that helps in coaching because you understand difficulties and perhaps the way to get there when you haven't got the natural talent.
I think a shot there that just summed up the way Amr was playing at the moment was he tidied up from the front left corner, and then David had to boast, and David was actually putting him under pressure, and from that situation Amr won the rally basically. And it's that sort of discipline that he's got now that he'd never had before.
it's immense pressure as well, isn't it, when David's well in the rally and Amr wins it. It was a beautifully executed cross-court drop that he won it with. And I've said it to you before, I think one of the things about Shabana is that he can play good shots off your good shots, whereas most people play the good shots off your inferior ones. Amr has the ability to play good shots almost from anywhere. He's really taking hold of this game in a big way, Peter. I don't know what you think.
Oh, completely. He's going for it, but in a like you said, in a controlled way. He's still that was an ambitious shot, but he's obviously seeing it so clearly and comfortably.
Just looks only in his element on this court, rather. It's really taking rather similar shape to your game last night, and David looks rather powerless, to be honest.
Yes, sir.
He's starting to look quite frustrated.
Rather forlorn, I thought that was.
He's going to have to try and do something, maybe physically push up.
No left. No left. And out.
You'll have to try and break it up somehow. If it is something like that, countering and then holding its position, or just break Amr's control of the game up.
He looks sort of devastatingly quick onto the ball at the minute. I mean, look at that. Look at that. No. That was so quick onto that. And look, I'm sure there's no way David's going to get that. The push wasn't quite necessary, I don't think.
But things like that, that's maybe what he has to do.
I hope we don't get into that sort of syndrome where we're saying that pushing is what people have to do. It's like saying the guy's beaten me on the football field with skill, so I'll pull his shirt. So I hope that's not what he has to do, and I don't think he's ever going to get that. So we have a different standpoint. You're a top player, and I have a dream about the game being played honestly and in the fairest way. So I hope he doesn't get physical.
Yes, left. Yes, left.
I'm not saying that's what I'd like to see, Malcolm.
No.
I'm just saying that
I'm sure
it's the final of a World Open, and
4-1.
got to find a way of getting back into the match.
Yeah. Well, I think he's going to struggle for squash, that's for sure. I mean, he has as well. He looks to be moving fine, but you have to be moving very well against Shabana. And he has had a heavy run, Doha through to here, and heavy games with Ricketts, and maybe he'll need all the pace he's got. Shabana is moving like lightning, isn't he? Jack Allen is refereeing. They won't get far with him, but Jack saw it down.
I saw the ball down.
It's very difficult from here to tell, really.
It's strange because it doesn't normally happen like that, where Amr's adamant that the ball was up and David's adamant the ball was down. And normally you see a little bit of a hesitation from the person who's trying to get away with it.
Carry on, please.
I think Amr's very straight like that, and David sometimes sees things his own way. Amr was very convinced that was that, but he's getting on with it quite rightly. No reason not to.
Yes, left. Yes, left. 2-4.
He's certainly getting to David a little bit here, I feel. David's gesturing a lot and not starting to talk, but he's looking very uncomfortable.
Down. 3-4.
Pull back to 3-4 from 4-1, and now 4-all.
4-all.
That's another wasteful return of serve.
Yes, left. Yes, left.
A lot of lets now and collisions, so maybe what you were saying, Peter, about David's way back in, it's become more physical and they seem to be getting in each other's way, breaking the play up. Maybe that'll help him.
I think they seem to get in each other's way just in their standard movement, and they're hitting the ball sort of mid-court and just standing on it, both of them. So a bit of an impasse. There's no way through for either of them.
Yes, left. Yes, left. 4-4.
Nearly every rally now is finishing in a collision. David is big in the front left, as I think most people know. There's never a lot of room. He's a big bloke. And
It was even bigger when you come straight out sideways there.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do about that, Mr. Palmer, unless you give me clean the ball every couple of minutes. Do you want the ball cleaned every couple of minutes?
David's starting to talk, which I think he hasn't been doing, and he won't get anywhere with Jack Allen anyway, so he might as well leave it.
I think what he's saying is the ball's actually the ink
Needs
from
cleaning.
which is darkening the ball.
Stroke 2, Shabana, hang on.
It's really spoiling the game, this as well, because it's losing shape, and it's just a series of collisions now, and I don't think that's really what we're looking for in a world final, or in any game of squash for that matter. See, this is crucial, Pete, to this game, because if Shabana goes 2 up, it's big for him, isn't it? Palmer must hang on to this game, I think.
He really does.
Yeah.
And even if, I think he has to win it, but if he doesn't, he's going to have to make Amr work quite hard in it, even if he
Yes, Ned.
loses it.
I don't see any way back at 2 love, so I really do think he'll have to get level here. He's hanging on well enough at the moment anyway, so. Probably got Amr playing slightly less shots at the moment. Peter, do you think Amir's having to just go along with it? He hasn't getting so many chances quite, so he's maybe getting the ball deeper and more contained.
It was Amr did play like 3 or 4 mistakes there to get it back sort of even, sort of 5-all. I think that's something he can do now. He can rally for a bit,
Yeah,
and
he certainly can,
then like there choose his time when he needs to go forward.
That's
I
right.
think he got into that at the start of that game. He was hitting the ball so well in short. He just kept doing it, and then all that happened was David got up the court, and he relinquished control to David by just constantly putting him in front of him.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if he gets him even a step further back on the court, he's so severe going in that's going to be enough to.
I think he's very good actually. When he needs to play long, I think he's very good. I saw it in Budapest. I was there when he won the Hungarian Open, and whenever he needed to play the ball tight and deep, he could do that. And he's quite patient. He doesn't sort of go in hell for leather or all of a sudden. It's quite controlled and disciplined in its way. And he's getting away here now, 7-4, and one fierce for David Palmer if Shabana goes 2 up. Two previous winners of World Championships, as we know. These two they've both won once before, so they've got a taste for it, no doubt, like everybody has. You were the 3rd one in the semi-finals who'd won before as well. So.
Right. 7-4.
Another error, and 8-4. He's got well clear now.
Just seemed to slip away from him.
Yeah.
Yes, Ned. 8-4.
David Palmer still seems to be moving fine, I think. Just Shabana's superior skills over.
Yes, Ned. Yes, Ned.
That looked a bit like a stroke. I'm surprised he didn't get a stroke out of that.
It just looked like he waited a bit too long.
Maybe, yeah.
Showed that Amr had got out of the way. But
Down. And up. 5-8.
Right, this is where David really has to pull back here, I think, from 5-8. Let's see what he can do. quickness of Shabana's racket there was amazing. A good winner though from Palmer. A good rally, a very sharp rally indeed.
That was a big mistake.
Yeah, very serious mistake. Just when he was looking like getting back in, 6-8 mistake, and now 9. It is a feature of the 11 scoring that people can pull back, but somehow I don't see any way back for David here. 9-6. Shabana just looks full of confidence, doesn't he? Every movement he's making. Do you not feel, Peter? He looks so confident. And
it just looks easy. Yeah. I think he's in control of his body, of his racket, everything, and David as well. Yeah. At the moment, it just seems so fluid. You know, that's what. And even when he makes a couple of mistakes or David gets close or it's a bit of a rally, you always get the feeling that he's just going to step up again and move away.
It's not dissimilar to how he looked playing you last night, I have to say. He looks so full of himself. He's high, I think, isn't he? He was very, very good before he took his break. I mean, he had claims to being as good a player as there was in the world. Then he won in St. Louis when everybody was there. He won in Hungary. Took a break, which I think he needed. With a tendonitis, and he's come back fresh as paint and raring to go. And this is the result of all that. I can't see any way back here, and I mean, it's a dangerous thing to say because Palmer can be as determined as you like, but I can't see anybody. This court definitely suits Amir, he loves it. It's a punishing court, I think, isn't it, Peter? I mean, tell us about the court, because it's perspex, and that's unusual nowadays.
Yeah, well, we're normally playing on, basically, this last time we played on a perspex court was in Hong Kong last August, and since then it's all been glass courts, so very different. The ball, the balls absorb the ball a bit more, so it doesn't come off quite as quickly. The floor is slightly different, a bit stickier, so it plays completely different. As you can see there, if you take the ball in short and well, it just doesn't come back. It sticks in there, so it's perfect for Amr's game. Getting onto it early, quick racket ahead, and it's almost they're winners. They're outright winners. A lot of the shots. There's nothing you can do, and to be seeing it that quickly and that early, it's a very, very difficult court to play on.
And of course, we're playing outside in the open air in this absolutely, I cannot tell viewers just how spectacular the backdrop is. We've got the high-rise buildings lit up, the harbour behind us. It's one of the most spectacular sights I've ever seen, with a big screen with a wonderful picture with steps running up to the Hong Kong Cultural Centre and hundreds of people watching from there. It's an absolutely amazing sight. It makes you realise how much squash has developed. I mean, is it different playing in the open air? You've played in the open air before. I mean, it's a lovely sort of, we would call it a balmy night. It's a lovely evening, but what would be the differences, Peter?
I think as the temperature drops and you're outside, the court gets very dead, more so than it ever would indoors. I don't know why. I don't know why that would. I'm no meteorologist, but I don't know why that is the case. But when we play outdoors, especially later on in the evening or as it gets cooler, it's very difficult to keep the ball warm, to keep it bouncing. So it makes it very,
even more in Amr's favour then, I guess.
Yes, completely, yeah.
And I mean, it is cooling down, isn't it? I can feel it's all cool tonight. Now, just at this time of night, it's been a very, I don't know how you describe the day. It's been very pleasant. It's not too humid this week while we've been here, and it's just very nice and warm and not humid. And it is like a cooling down process this evening, isn't it? I can definitely feel it is cooler. So what you're saying is very relevant at this time of night. Where are we? It's 8:05 here, so
it's a fresh evening now.
Yeah, it's quite a fresh evening, and as it is cooling down, what you say is even more relevant for Amir, I think.
Well, I remember playing at the Pyramids one year, and then the first match that went on, it was at 6:30, 7 o'clock when the sun went down, and it was still mid-20s.
Really?
And then I played last on at 11:30. It was freezing,
Really
and
cold.
there was a sandstorm blowing, so it was just completely different.
Shouldn't be a problem with your origins, I think, coming from far north and with a dad that likes fresh air, so should have coped with
We
that.
don't have outdoor courts up there.
With plenty of cool weather though. I've been to Edinburgh and further.
But going back to what you said, I was sitting watching the ladies' final earlier on the steps, just soaking up the atmosphere, and just looked up and you just saw Hong Kong Island with all the skyscrapers and everything. And it's just amazing. I think, for personally, where squash has taken me, and how amazing a spectacle it is now.
Well, imagine if you're as old as me, how far it's taken me. If I can just reminisce quickly, I remember addressing a Gray's conference once and telling them that 500 people would watch the game, and it drew gasps of amazement and disbelief. And now look at this, we're playing in Grand Central, under the pyramid, and this ranks with that. It's been a wonderfully run tournament. It's in the most outrageously beautiful setting. So how good is all that for squash anyway?
That was something I noticed yesterday with Amr's play. He hit a few outright winners to length when I was actually on the tee.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite a difficult feat.
Yeah. David's made a brighter start here anyway, so he's obviously not given up, as he certainly won't. He doesn't give up on things. He's got a 3-2 lead, which he certainly needs. He'll need all the impetus he can get to stay in this match.
He's going to fight all the way.
Yeah, he will do. He's a very determined customer.
And the last title he won in Antwerp, I remember watching him play John White in the semi-final, and he was 2-love down and match balls down. And I remember him coming back to win that 3-2 and then go on to win the title. Oh, that was the final, sorry.
It was the final, I was going to say, yeah. Well, I mean, he's a big player, isn't he? He's won 3 British Opens in the world, there's no question. Making a bit of a scene there, looks like a footballer. Gentle nudge in the back. Amir still looks full of it though. He's like a caged lion almost, prowling around the middle there. He's made another error. 4-2. If he gives David any sort of sniff of getting back in, then that wouldn't be a good idea from Amit's point of view, because David will certainly get some confidence out of that.
Yeah, you'll take that.
He's certainly moving okay. That's not a problem.
I think it's like we said, if he's gone a bit short again here, Amr, and David's then moving. David's moving well.
Yeah.
I think it's just that when he takes his movement away from him, that's when he's hitting his winners. But
Yeah. David's been ahead of Amr in the court here in this game, hasn't he, rather than behind him so much. But that's typical of what you said, how he can slot winners from behind you there. He's whipped that cross court there across him and left him for dead, hasn't he, from behind him. An unlikely situation to hit a winner in. And yet he's done with some ease, and now he's back level again. And now, how quickly has that turned from 4-2 to 5-4? A loser, a stroke, or a no-let, and a vicious winner cross court. I mean, suddenly, there's no stopping this guy. I think. He's a great player anyway, so great player. Suddenly it's 6-4, like he did in the second game, except he's doing it earlier. He's drawn clear almost in a trice, almost before Palmer can draw breath.
when you play him as well, when I played him yesterday, obviously, and it's just 3-4 points just go.
Yeah.
And that here, another point there, and it's almost like Palmer probably feel like he has to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Amr hits a couple of winners, then tidies it up, and then Palmer has to feel I have to hit a winner, and then he makes a couple of mistakes. Amr makes a couple more winners, then you've lost 6 points.
Yeah, I think he has that capacity to make things happen quickly, so he seems almost not to be working very hard for his points. That's certainly happened here. He's moving very quickly as well, though, isn't he? He's moving extremely well.
Incredibly sharp onto the ball. And
Yeah. I mean, his fitness used to be a bit suspect, didn't it? Going back a while, people thought if you got to him, he wasn't that fit, but I don't think anybody could say that now. I don't know what he's doing conditioning-wise, but it's working.
he definitely has been doing
Yeah.
the last 6 months or so. He's been doing a lot more physical work.
No net. No net. 8-5.
I get a sense that David knows this is up somehow. There's something, the look of him, just I think he knows there's no way back here.
It seems to be everything he's tried, it just hasn't quite worked. Amr's always had an answer for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And he should finish this rally.
Yes, net. Net. 8-5.
He'll be a popular winner anyway because he's an engaging sort of character. He's always got a cheery word and a smile, and he certainly plays the game in a very, very compelling and attractive way. I find him a fascinating player to watch.
Through to Palmer. Palmer out.
6-8. You think maybe Peter Winner, these next couple of rallies are like the last throw of the dice, maybe, or
Well, it is for David, yeah. I suppose it just depends on how Amr, if he gets a bit nervy, if he maybe makes a couple of mistakes.
it doesn't look like to get nervy, does it? You might make the other error, it will be nerves.
No net.
He just looks so comfortable on the ball, and he's putting the ball in areas where David just can't get to.
Just playing with sort of just such ease and confidence. I've never been in that situation. I'm sure you have from time to time. It must be a marvellous feeling when everything is just running for you and the whole thing seems easy, I think.
Yeah, it was a while ago for me, the last time I played like that as well, Malcolm.
I can actually remember playing cricket and having a bit of a success and remembering how easy all that seemed at the time. Didn't last so long.
7-9.
It is a wonderful feeling for
When things are easy, isn't it? Well, it's a wonderful feeling in life when life's easy, so it's a pattern. Isn't very often that's the case.
Yes, net. You're leading him into
Yeah, he delayed. He delayed and held that shot and created the stroke situation. So
I think it was a stroke on the third bounce.
yeah, Jack wasn't falling for that. XRUC policeman, not easily fooled.
So you're saying he can be fooled?
Well, yeah, maybe.
8-9, he's pulled himself
Yeah,
back.
come back again. Looks unlikely, but here we are. Cracking hit by Shabana there. What a response to that to take him to match ball.
Well, you saw David make sure he put the ball on the wall so Amr couldn't go for his cross-court nick. But then by doing that, he gave him the angle to hit straight. So it's
not easy against this guy this week. You'll be almost semi-relieved to see him play like this.
Yes, net. Net. 10-8. Net ball.
he's won it.
It's a new world champion and a very deserved one on his performance this week because he's absolutely wiped people out and played like a world champion should. He's definitely got the ability of a world champion and hats off to him. He's a great player.
It's got to be I think it's got to be the shortest time ever to win a world title. I imagine if you total it up, he's maybe been on court for 2 hours, two and a bit hours.
You may well be right, Peter. He's absolutely, Simon Park actually, I think, gave him the hardest game in the very first round. Simon will be quite flattered by that. He may be making another comeback.
Saying that last week in Qatar, I think he gave James his hardest match of the week in the first round as well. I don't know if he's
Park will be feeling a bit unlucky then that he's not double champion, but there you go.
He drew the people in form both times.
Well, Shabana was looking like the player he's shown tonight before he took his rest. He won in St. Louis, he won in Budapest, he won in Cairo, and tonight he's confirmed that. After players have to take a rest every now and again, Peter, don't they? And he took one. I'm sure it was quite calculated. And in fact, I know it was. And then I think he got a bit of a wrist injury. But players need a rest. You can't go on playing these tournaments. And he's profited from it, come back fresh, and produce the performance of a lifetime here.
Well, I think he stopped for playing during Ramadan.
Right.
That was the time he took off, and I think it's another reason for his success.
Right.
He's very spiritual man, and he seems to.
Right. Well, he was due a rest as well. So I mean, he'd had a run of 4 or 5 tournaments. Maybe that was all planned then to coincide with Ramadan as well. But it's all worked out for him anyway. And
it's worked out beautifully.
And I mean, players have to plan their lives, and obviously if there are religious considerations as well, they have to be taken into account. And the end product is that he'll be thinking how clever he is, and he's advised us that they've got it all right here, and we've got a very worthy world champion who can stand with the best world champions we've had, of which you were one.
Well, he's now a 2-time world champion, which there aren't many people in the world can say that.
Absolutely. They're getting everything ready now for the presentation. The tournament has been wonderfully administered and run by Heather, who will be retiring, I gather, this year as Chief Executive of Hong Kong, but she's a wonderful woman. She's around all the time, smiling, always cheerful, always got time for you. Tony Choi, the national coach, a terrific team they've got around them to stage this event. It's the first time ever that the men's and women's have been staged together. And we've had a wonderful new champion, Nicole David, there, Malaysian, very popular. So hats off to everybody associated with Hong Kong squash. They've done the game a great service, and we hope that you've enjoyed the coverage tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have great pleasure to invite our guest of honor tonight to present.
And we're going to stay, obviously, and watch the presentation.
Well, I'm actually have to go to the presentation.
Oh,
So
Peter,
I'm gonna have to
Peter
leave.
has to leave. So thanks to Peter for his very informed comments, and he has to go and get an award now, fourth stroke playoff.
That's the nicest
So-
thing you've ever said about me.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Oh, well, I do say nice things about you privately, but not to your face.
Never
you
to
know
me.
that.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Good
Peter
night.
Nicol, everybody.
And
there we've got Jahangir Khan, the great player, Jahangir Khan, president of the World Federation, avuncular, pleasant. Came out the other day and played an exhibition for everybody. He's a terrific guy, a great personality, and there you can see the team in action. There's Russ there, the mastermind, and that's my voice you're hearing, sadly. I hope Peter and I have done the occasion justice. We've certainly tried to bring it to you. And I think it's marvellous that pictures are available around the world now to all the squash playing public. And there we have a lovely shot of the... And there's at the back there, James Barrington, who's the man behind Cathay Pacific, an ex-Lancing College pupil who I knew in his days as an England under-19 player. Great guy, wonderfully friendly, and I think he plays a big part in the continued sponsorship of Cathay Pacific. And many thanks to him. We've had many a tale to tell between us, and it's been great to see him again. He still plays a bit. He's been playing Gwaine Briars. Chief Executive of PSA, notched a couple of wins, and then he played actually against Jahangir Khan in the exhibition yesterday afternoon. And big applause now for the new world champion who's coming on court, and for David Palmer, who's done so well to reach 2 successive finals. There's Heather moving around the front row there, organising things in the way she does. And here we see, proud dad here, James Wilstrop, who lost to David Palmer in the semis, going up for his bronze medal. And here's Peter, who's been commentating with you, the great Peter Nicol, the greatest of the great, probably, a wonderful guy, a wonderful ambassador for the sport, and a wonderful player, and still is a wonderful player. And that's why he had to leave, to go and get his bronze medal.
to deliver a speech.
I know James isn't into bronze medals much. He was telling me when he was watching Nicole get her award, didn't like these ceremonies much unless he was first prize. Just listening to the final speeches. Well, I'm going to leave you now, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope that you've enjoyed the pictures brought by PSA Live tonight. And I'd like to wish you from Hong Kong a very good night with two champions, Amr Shabana and Nicole David. Thank you very much for listening, and good night.